Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 188 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. That's Trev here. Two of us wearing our bucket hats. Feeling a little good. Trev, yours fits a little bit better than mine. Mine literally has to sit on top of my head.
Why don't you at least put the W in the front?
The W is in the front.
I mean, it's like off to the over your right eye. There you
it's
go.
Probably because my father-in-law came over this afternoon and got me liquored up. So we're going to take that off. That was just for some fun as I knock off my hearing aid there.
I'm gonna wear mine.
Silliness aside, because this has gone off the rails already, and I didn't mean for that to happen. But this is episode 188. Lots to talk about. We got the initial 53. That is going to be the crux of this episode. That's what we're going to be talking about in the game. In the cool down, we're going to be talking about the moves that are coming next, which are already happening. Noah Brown signed just minutes before we went live here, because we do stream live every Wednesday on Facebook and YouTube, and you can join the conversation when you do that. We already have Locked On Law going crazy in the chat with Todd and Red Stitches and Gus Bus, Trevor in there as well, Jersey Slim, Brian, everybody is already in the chat, and you need to join them live. If you don't worry. You can also catch us on all of your favorite audio platforms right afterwards. I think we normally get those loaded on Thursday, but you can set those to auto download, listen to them on the go there while you are traveling to work. We're part of the Believe Network, brought to you by Bet Online. Football season's nearly upon us. You can get your bet-ins, live bets, live odds throughout the game. And when you're done, you can head over to their casino and play all the different games they have on there. Just use the code BELIEVE to get yourself some extra money to play with. That's BLEAV for Bet Online, where the game starts. Bet responsibly, all that good stuff. I think that's all the housekeeping.
It is.
Tell me if there's any more housekeeping, because Locked On Law is warming up. And if there's no more housekeeping, we can move to the warm-up that we wanted to talk about, which is the weekend wrap-up. Now, I'm going to end this section because it's a better segue for me on the New England game, on how that impacted the 53. So let's start first with the man we're seeing on screen right now, which is Josh Harris, who got up and talked with the media. Feel bad leaving Trev without the hat there, so we're going to put the hat back on. But he talked to the media, and he had a few things to say. Now, our master of reading between the lines, Stoner, how did you feel when he talked about not focusing on the name change, but he kind of left it open as that's something that may or may not happen in the future?
Yeah, I think that's fair what he said, because let's first take the elephant in the room, right? And let's just understand and hear what he said. The old name's not coming back. Let's put that to bed and move on. But he didn't totally rule out a new name. But there's so much more important things to focus on here for the future. So let's just kind of put that aside, especially now that football season is starting. Let's put all that aside and start focusing on what's ahead. Winning, that's what he said. First, we got to win. Then we can sort of figure out all this other stuff. And they've really kind of been winning a little bit off the field. That's an old saying, but still kind of applies here. So I liked what he said about it. He didn't totally rule it out, but he was able to kind of push it down the road for the next few years for sure.
Sure. As Gus Bus points out, the Commanders Field lasted all of a couple of months in the offseason. One of the big things that happened, not necessarily in the Josh Harris presser, but did happen this weekend, Trev, was Northwest Field is the new name, as the team was able to secure a sponsor. Got rid of all the FedEx stuff and now have a new sponsor. How do you feel? This, by the way, the sponsor lasts through 2030, 31, I believe. So, but it doesn't preclude the team from moving to a new stadium. How do you feel about the team getting a new sponsor and what that means for the franchise?
It means that we're alive again, guys. We don't have the dark cloud over. Somebody actually wants to be a sponsor for the Washington Commanders. I've already seen this fan base nitpick at it saying Northwest, but we're on the East. I know. It is what it is. Just be glad we have a sponsor. We don't have to keep going to FedEx Field anymore or anything like that. So it's hitting. Things are hitting in a good direction. We're starting to be liked again. Shows that our owner and front office is a respectable team. At least to say about it. So yeah, let's keep going with this new stuff.
I think one of the things that's great about this sponsor is that it doesn't necessarily sound like a sponsor, right? It's Northwest Field. I get that it's not anywhere near the Northwest, unless you're like talking like Northwest of, Landover. But outside of that, I like that it's just a simple thing. And people are coming up with different names, the Fed, because it is a credit union and all this other stuff. I think that it's going to help. It's not identity like defining, but it's also not stopping us from finding an identity within there, plus getting rid of the FedEx and the orange and the purples and stuff, as much as I love purple. But that's, it's good to get rid of that. Let's get Commanders or Washington in there, get that burgundy and gold in there. So what else?
Field at Northwest
Stadium. I like that.
Right? Commanders Field at Northwest Stadium.
Yeah, it works for me.
I like that, but I don't know that they're ever going to go to that. And I didn't correlate, by the way, that Josh Harris hated the names Commanders so much that he renamed the field, and that Commanders Field never even got a regular season game. I didn't correlate that. I think that's sort of a coincidence that it happened at that time. They found a sponsor. The sponsor was willing to give them money. Do what you want with that stadium in terms of putting your name on there. Give me $10 million or whatever it is. And we can do things to make the stadium even better than they've already done, by the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of improvements. That's one of the things Josh Harris was talking about. You alluded to, Stoner, was the name's not the focus. The stadium is something that they're trying to work on, the new one. But in the meantime, they're trying to win games now. And he kind of, to me, he talked about not being a part of what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are, right? He's going to let them do their thing. But what he talked about is the stuff that he can impact, right? Making those improvements in the stadium. We've already seen, I get that it's a painted coat, and some people might say it's slapping lipstick on a pig.
Right.
But FedEx Field, or formerly FedEx Field, now Northwest Stadium, needed some work, needed some things done. And we've seen some of that at the practice fields. If you were able to go to Ashburn and see some of the practices, it's a nicer facility for the team. Jen Leno, for a friend of the channel, talked about some of the simple things that they tried to get when, they were there, and hoping that Josh Harris and company will do that. I guarantee you that NFLPA grading hurt him bad. He will not stand for them to be the 32nd rated team. An F across the board, pretty much. Not going to happen under Josh Harris. Winning in the margins, Trev, right, is the thing that they try to shift away from the winning off the field, but winning in the margins.
Yep.
How do you feel he's doing that? That might be a way that, even though it's winning in the margins, which means it might not be something we notice, but what are some ways that fans will notice the changes that Josh Harris is bringing?
Just the cosmetic stuff to start off with. There's new murals on the wall. I think one of the beat reporters posted there's a baby childcare place now for you guys, for everybody out there who had a problem with that. This isn't on the headline, but it is a headline. Sean Taylor Memorial is being taken down and being put up the correct way, which is huge for this fan base and for the organization after the debacle that they tried to do last year, or they did last year. So
I got some
those
good intel on that, by the way, for later.
Oh, I can't hear that. So those are winning in the margins. Little things that boost the morale of the fans is winning in the margin. Outside the obvious of putting the product on the field and naming the team and coaching staff and all that. It's just little things that appease with the fans that can hopefully draw older fans back to the stadium, or newer fans, giving them a reason to come to the stadium. So that's winning in the margins. Little details like that goes a long way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about. That Sean Taylor thing did come a bit of a shock. I mean, that's a very recent addition to the stadium. And yes, it was critically panned. I don't know that there was very many people who liked it. There was some discussion around it as far as, no, the family was involved, but then they forgot simple things like the tape on the mask, the right jersey. and
right socks,
right size.
shoes, I think even.
Right shoes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of haphazardly put together, and a lot of people didn't like that it looked like a mannequin rather than a statue. Now they're going to move to a statue. Now, Stoner, you said later. Is now later enough for you?
Sure, I got some good intel on that. I got the intel is that. Do you know who was in charge of putting that together?
Magic
the
Johnson.
Previous one.
The previous one?
The coat hanger deal. The Sean Taylor.
Is it not the former president?
No, it was
Ron
not.
Rivera.
I mean, possibly he oversaw, but he
probably
was
had
not,
to sign off on things.
Right. He was not the day.
Ron Rivera.
No, but close. One of Ron Rivera's kids.
Are you serious right now?
Yes. Was in charge. I don't have a full confirmation on that, but I have heard through a source that one of Ron Rivera's kids,
right? Why am I spacing her name? Yeah.
It wasn't Stephanie.
It wasn't Stephanie.
And it wasn't there was another that was a coach.
Yeah, the dude, the muscle man.
Right. It was the other one that had a nice cushy high up position within the Commanders organization. Don't know anything about that kid, right? I don't know if they're a great business person or whatever, but they were in charge. Ron Rivera's kid was in charge of putting together the Sean Taylor situation.
I guess they said, just go ahead and do whatever. I'm out of here in the next 4 weeks anyway. So, or whenever they
I don't know if it was that bad. I think that they were trying to go for a new age look, right? Because it was supposed to be a little bit more futuristic, a little bit more, marquee, sure.
Yeah.
They were definitely going for a certain look. It didn't fit the stadium. It didn't fit Sean Taylor. It certainly didn't fit this fan base. And now it's going to go away. I mean, it's already gone. Actually, you're right, Trev. Like if you were there at the Pats game, you would not have seen it. Mm-hmm. And if you go to the first home game of the season, you're not going to see it. You'll still see the locker upstairs. The Joe Gibbs club level is decked out as it usually is. There's new murals. There's a lot of good stuff there. But it was interesting that they walked away from that Sean Taylor mannequin in a hurry. That was how long ago was that? Was that 2 seasons ago? 2 years ago. I want to say 2022 was when it was. Yeah, 2022. So
that they walked away. I mean, of all the things that this ownership could have done outside of getting settled in and working on the football team, getting the right guys in place, the Dan Quinns and Adam Peters and all that. Of all the things that they could have tackled, that seems to be number one on their list. And that makes it a really big deal and should have been a big deal. You remember all the videos when they unveiled the statue? Remember all the videos of the people like gasping, like,
what is this?
What is going on here?
It's a rough draft. Like
rough draft is a good way of looking at it. But I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm glad that the ownership understands the value of the past to this organization. And he keeps saying it. We have to stay connected to the past, not with the name, but with the alumni, with the people who helped build this franchise into what it is today, 3 Super Bowls and all the championships all together. So I like that they're doing it, that they're focusing on certain things. They can't do it all at once, but they are doing. There has been no missteps so far from this front office / ownership group. There have been no missteps. There's not been a time where like, I think he's kind of getting off track here a little bit, or there's a personality issue, or there's an ego issue, or there's a money.
I mean, they do have like a $30 nacho you can get. I mean, that's not exactly the best thing. Yeah. But I mean, it's also.
But it looks good. I'd eat it.
It's gonna sell. It's gonna sell. Yam asked the question: didn't Sean's daughter help with the mannequin too? Though it was, as I mentioned in the opening to that, was that the family was supposed to be involved. That was what we were told.
Right.
That being said, I'm not saying that didn't happen, But Sean's daughter did do the video that was talking about the statue that's going to be built. And that felt a lot different than being told the family was involved. Now we're actually, she felt, it definitely sounded to me, I'm reading it, I'm pulling a stoner here. I'm reading in between the lines.
That's right.
It seemed like she didn't have anything to do with that mannequin, but she's proud to be a part of the statue that's going to be.
How old is Jackie?
She's playing ball at Carolina, so
she's like 19 years old, right?
Right.
She's still young.
When they would have started putting this together, she would have been 16. Do you think she's going to go up to all of these big wigs and tell them that they're doing this wrong, that this is not honoring him at all, and that they need to change this? And 16 years old, they're not going to do that. So they were probably informed of what was going on, but I don't know that she necessarily got a whole lot of input. That's just my total guess, though.
Yeah, so she's a freshman over at North Carolina for the volleyball team. So yeah, maybe 18, 19 years old. So yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Anything not football related that we didn't talk about from either Harris or this past week that might have happened?
I got one other.
Okay.
I got another source of information. Okay. We all know that that Jason Wright is leaving at the end of the season, right? Is it season or end of the year? Do we know? Is it season? It's about the same anyway.
It doesn't matter.
It's right around January 1st. We know he's leaving, right? There's a very good chance that they will announce where the stadium is going before Jason Wright leaves.
Ooh.
There's a good chance that that's going to happen. Now, that's only a few months away. I'm not saying that they're going to start building a stadium.
Right.
But they're going to be able to announce where that stadium will be before Jason Wright leaves his position as president of the team.
That feels like it wouldn't be RFK then. I don't think that's going to get resolved before the end of the season.
But they could have like a path to RFK.
If a path is one thing, Stoner, but that's not, hey, we're going to have a stadium back in DC and then outline a path, because politics is involved, and that could be a bad thing to try to promise that ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll see what happens. But that's just another little source of information that I was able to glom onto. So that will be in the Southwest. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of stuff in there. All right, I'm
ready to talk football.
Yeah, let's move to the football side real quick. New England game.
Yeah,
a lot of probably too much stock gets put into that final preseason game. Case in point, Martavius Bryant had a pretty good game.
Yeah,
looked pretty good, and not signed to the 53, not put on the practice squad. He's just out there. What else happened in that game that you think may or may not have had an impact on the 53?
Didn't KJ Henry completely blow up Jacoby Brissett? And not only did he, he didn't win a job with his play in that particular game, right? So I thought that was interesting. Michael Wiley seemed to have a pretty good game that game. He didn't make the squad either. So, I think you're right, Nathan. I think that, Cole Turner did have a –
Locked on Law pointing out Cole Turner did not have a good game. And they tried shopping him, and that didn't work out. Now he's back in the practice squad.
He did have a really good catch, though, a really nice catch over the middle where he put his body on the line and caught a pass. So that was nice. But his first two were drops, and I think the writing was already on the wall for him. But you're right. I think although the coaches they did say that going into that third preseason game, there were still jobs to be won. At the end of the roster.
Dan Quinn specifically mentioned only a handful, though, right? I mean, he might have said 7 or 8 jobs are still out there on the line, so it wasn't too certain. And you can always tell in that last playoff game who's a lock, because they come out of to the game in street clothes. Forbes was like, some people had a question whether or not Forbes was going to make the roster. Kid was out there wearing a shirt and some pants. I was like, yep, he's a lock, guys. If he was fighting for a spot, he would have been out there on the field.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think another one who ended up on the practice squad that didn't have a good enough game was Chig. Undrafted free agent. He is back on the practice squad, or he is on the practice squad for Washington. But he was another one I felt didn't do enough to supplant this this horrible cornerback room. But you know what? Let's talk just about this 53. We're going to wrap up the weekend wrap and get ourselves to the game. Stick with us. Welcome to the game here on episode 188 here on Ref the District. Now, one of the things I think is really cool here, gentlemen, is this is Adam Peters' first 53.
Okay.
I don't know if I don't know. I feel like I get tingly feelings about it. Like this is the start of something. This is this man's. He's been working his way up the league. He's working his tail off over in the 49ers, but none of those, even though if he had great input over there, were his 53, right?
Sure.
This is his first roster that he's building that I feel is the start of something personally. I feel like even if this isn't a roster that wins more than 6 or 7 games this year, that we've already seen a shift. In fact, so much of a shift. If you look back at the 2023 Week 18 roster, how many people are even still on the team? Trev, I think you pulled that up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just looked up the roster for 2023. I don't know if it's Week 18, but it doesn't matter because all these players are not on this team no matter what. So, Jacoby Brissett, Jake Fromm, Sam Howell. Those are the 3 quarterbacks we put out. Alex Armah, fullback, Gibby, Derek Gore, Jonathan Williams, those are running backs gone. Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Mitchell Tinsley was active, but now he's on practice squad, if that tells you anything. Tight ends, Logan Thomas, he gone. Cole Turner, practice squad. Offensive lineman, Alex Akilimbulu or whatever. Sadiq Charles, Nick Gates, Chris, Andrew, everybody's still there. Defensive lineman, Abdullah Anderson, gone. Jalen Harris, gone. KJ Henry, gone. Benning Poete, gone. Joshua Pryor, gone. John Ridgway, gone today. James Smith-Williams, gone. Casey 2 Sacks, 2 Hills, gone. Let's go to linebackers. Cody Barton, gone. Jabril Cox, gone. DeJohn Harris, gone. Fleek Hudson, gone. David Mayo, gone. Those are the linebackers that we had just last year. Defensive backs, Terrell Burgess, safety gone. Cam Curl, fan favorite, gone. Caillou Blue Kelly was here this preseason, but he gone now. Special teams, Tucker Addington, the long snapper, he gone. Joey Sly, he gone. I mean, and then you got David Bada, Curtis Brooks, Tariq Casher Fields, Brandon Dillon, who's a tight end, Kendall Fuller, Curtis Hodges, tight end, Christian Holmes, Tyler Larson, Charles Leno, Dax Milne, F.A. Obata, Chris Rodriguez, he's practice squad, Armani Rogers, Ricky Stromberg, Shaka Tony. I mean, and then you go to practice squad. You got Mason Brooks, he gone. Sean Chandler, he gone. Jared Jones-Smith, he gone. Joshua Kalu, gone. Nolan Laufenberg, gone. D'Angelo Mendel, gone. Jared Patterson, gone. Nick Whiteside, gone. Jace Whitaker, gone. So,
75%?
Yeah, this is not the same roster whatsoever. This is I don't know that we've ever seen something like this.
It would be hard to quantify in terms of finding out, comparing it to other organizations. But within Washington's organization, I believe Rick Snyder said it's the biggest turnover since 1936, something to that effect. So, I mean, it's just a massive, massive turnover. And I think there's a lot surprised me, not just with the initial cuts, but with some of the practice squad players are surprising to me. Some of the non-practice squad players are surprising to me. The waiver claims are surprising to me.
0 waiver claims
or no waiver claims. Yeah. And that only 2 guys that got cut were actually claimed in the waiver process, right? KJ Henry, and remind me of who.
Cashman Fields.
Fields went to
Cashman Fields,
Carolina,
right?
and KJ Henry went to New Orleans.
No,
I'm trying.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, he went to Cincy, right?
Sorry, Cincinnati. You're right.
It's okay.
Somebody went to New Orleans. Just
Somebody did
signed
go to
Ridgeway.
New Orleans. Oh, Ridgeway. John Ridgeway was traded to New Orleans. That's
Yeah,
where the money was.
trade. So I think there's a lot to. It's hard to kind of figure out the overall big picture of it. Is it not? Sort of trying to figure it out. These are his guys that they believe in, but do they really believe in some of these guys?
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
not-
you're
I
gonna.
don't know. It's
Adam
hard.
Peters talked a bit about the roster, and of course, he's going to say, as I break my chair, as he's going to say that he believes in these guys, and they specifically talked about wide receivers, and Adam Peters kind of went away from the receivers and said, "Look at the running backs, look at the tight ends, the receiving people. The people going to catch this ball are going to be pretty good for him." So, I think that there's still room for improvement. In fact, we're going to go over the roster as it's currently here in a moment.
I want to ask Trev a question, but after you're done and before you do the roster.
Yeah, I'm not planning on getting to the roster right now because I still want to talk about the initial 53. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to, Trev, you said
I can't hear.
you said, do you want me to speak up? You said that there were no surprises in the cuts.
Yeah.
And you know what, Trev? I'm pretty much with you on that. I agree that there are probably no surprises. KJ Henry surprised me.
That was a surprise.
That was the only one that really surprised me. But let me ask you this, Trev. I'm going to flip it on you a little bit.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm going to ask you to look at it in a little bit different way. And I'm not just asking Trev. I'm asking everybody here. I'm asking Nathan as well. But if I asked you, are there any surprises on the roster? If I told you, for example, if I told you that Jeff Driscoll was cut, would that surprise you? No. If I told you that Jeremy McNichols was cut, would you be surprised? No. And let's just say Michael Wiley made it and Jeremy McNichols didn't.
Okay.
Right? No. But you're not surprised Michael Wiley was cut. I mean, we never heard of him until he showed up in camp this year. Right? So I'm asking you, are there any surprises on the team? Is Yankoff a surprise that he's on the team? Is I'm trying to think of some other. Is Byron Pringle?
Yes.
And Jamison Crowder, are they a surprise that they made this team? Jamin Davis, Fedarian Mathis, Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, Derek Forrest. Are these guys not surprises that they're on the roster?
I'm going to go with Jeremy Reeves personally. Yes, because he had a super quiet preseason and training camp, and he's on there. Yankoff, you heard nothing but good things. You even heard a couple of times Jayden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury mention his name, so that was
But you wouldn't have been surprised if he was cut.
No, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was cut.
No, but he made the team. That's pretty surprising.
It is pretty initial 53. Yeah, it is pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Mathis, no, they liked Mathis since day one. Who else did you say? There was one right before.
Well, Percy Butler, Derek Forrest.
Yeah,
on that
Jean Baptiste.
No, he's good.
I mean, you heard nothing about this dude in the preseason. And he was
Reeves.
He was drafted.
Seventh round.
Yeah.
So they keep all their draft picks.
They did. They kept him over KJ Henry. They kept him after Andre Jones. Okay. I will say this. So a couple things. My surprise cut and my surprise keep whiffed horribly. Okay. I said Derek Forrest is going to be a surprise cut. Didn't happen. And I said Chris Rodriguez is going to be a surprise keep. Didn't happen. They put him on the practice squad. Now, that's some egg on my face. One of the things I failed to think about when it came to that safety room, because they kept 6 safeties. 6.
If you include, they kept 6?
6 safeties.
Okay.
Jeremy Chin, Quan Martin, Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, Tyler Owens, and Derek Forrest. All 6. one of the things I failed to think about was that this defense, Dan Quinn and Joe Witt defense, they like to use the safety position. And they had another safety, Dominic Hampton, that they've shifted to the linebacker position.
Right.
And the other part was the tight ends. I thought only keeping 3 tight ends. I thought we were going to see Yankoff or Cole Turner on the practice squad. Cliff Kingsbury loves his tight ends. Now we still might see Yankoff hit the practice squad now because there's some movement here. We're going to talk about that and what's next. But these are the guys you want to initially keep. And then when you start bringing in other players, some of these guys you had here will move to the practice squad, and some of those practice squad guys are gone. And you do that because you don't want in the initial fray of week 1 roster building, you don't want to give up some of these. Tyler Owens and Colson Yankoff are absolutely pieces that you don't want to subject to waivers because teams are desperate for players who play with that tenacity. I'm calling out those 2 specifically because they're undrafted free agents. And they were talked about by Dan Quinn and the intensity that they bring, the fact that they made the initial 53. I don't think they're going to see a lot of game time this season, but they are what this team wants to be.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
That's why they're here.
That's the big thing when they constructed this initial 53, or I think at this point now you just call it the 53 because everything else is just kind of your normal everyday moves, right? From now on. But I think when you look at it, you're looking at dudes that are in the image of Dan Quinn and what Dan Quinn and Adam Peters wants. They'll take a guy like Yankoff who probably does not have the physical skills that Cole Turner has, right? But what he has that, for lack of a better term, he has that dog in him, the Dan Quinn and Adam Peters love. That's part of their identity that they want in this football team. They want Tyler Owens to be that guy on the gunner to be running down there and attacking instead of, let's just say, he probably took Tariq Castro Field's spot instead of having 6 corners. You got 5 corners and you got 6 safeties. So he probably took his spot, right? So because why? Because he's the image that they're trying to get. Jahan's gone, right? And they're going to keep Pringle and Crowder, dogs, right? Guys who will fight to the end. Jahan Dotson, not necessarily the type of guy who's going to fight, who's going to block, who's going to put his body on the line, who's going to have the right attitude and the team first and all of that. And that's what I've seen with those guys, that especially what you just mentioned, Nathan, is the guys like Owens and Yankoff, guys like that who fit the image of what they're trying to put together. It may not be the most talented roster, and we know that, and it's going to take some time to get there, but these are the kind of guys that they want on this team.
Let's talk about one of the other things that was a bit of a surprise here, and that was Fedarian Mathis and John Ridgway. Now, it came out that they were trying to trade Ridgway before cuts were made. Cole Turner as well. They were trying to do some shopping. It's always interesting when teams do that, when they put that out there, because they know you have to make cuts. So a lot of teams will just choose to wait, to see if that player becomes available. Now, some team might get desperate and, think that they need to jump on a player early. But this was one where they did originally keep 5 defensive tackles. So back down to 4 because John Ridgway was traded with a 7th round pick to get a 6th back from New Orleans. We can talk about that trade in a moment, but right now I want to talk about the keeping of the 2 while you're trying to do it. Now, Yam is asking, I wonder if the Ridgway trade was due to DQ's, Dan Quinn's familiarity with him and not wanting to keep him, just like in Dallas. Because you remember, this was a 5th round pick. Ridgway was a 5th round pick for Dallas. He was waived, picked up by Washington right away, snap pick. Played in Washington for 2 seasons. Now Dan Quinn comes, and Dan Quinn once again a part of the team that ships him away.
Right?
Is there something to that, or are we reading too much into it?
I think there's a little bit something to do with it for sure. It's just it makes too much sense for it to not be that. Adam Peters said in his presser today on the trade that he wishes him luck, but maybe he'll go somewhere we can play more and probably fit the scheme better. Because he probably didn't fit the scheme in Dallas. That's why they got rid of him. But he fit Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio. He fit his scheme. We were kind of desperate at the time. And then I guess since we got Dan again, he gave him a chance to see if he can actually work out, and it just didn't work out. So they shipped him away. I think that's spot on, actually.
I agree. I think it's too. There's too much there to be a coincidence.
Yeah,
it just has to be that either he doesn't fit the system or Dan Quinn just doesn't sort of like the role that he plays. We all know he is the type of player that Dan Quinn likes, right? He's a dog. He's nasty. He'll get after it. But maybe it's just something about him that Dan Quinn says doesn't fit this team.
Also, why is it interesting that they traded him instead of just releasing him? Do you think that's a
Well, I think, and
think?
Ryan had mentioned here that they actually did receive offers before it became public that they're trying to shop him. It was one of those things. Now, I think there might be some things we don't see. I believe Adam Peters kind of put it out there, try to get the feelers. Hey, we got some pretty good guys here on the defensive line. What are you thinking? Right? Yeah, sprinkling it out there. And then people came to him and were like, well, actually, you do. We could use a guy like this. Now, what do you think? I heard this take. I forget from whom. If I could remember, I would give credit where credit's due. Besides scheme, besides the Dan Quinn, knowing him from Cowboys and everything, because to me, layman sitting over here on my chair, not really, in the ins and outs of the defensive tackle position there in Ashburn, it seemed like Ridgeway outperformed Mathis in my novice appearance, right? And my novice take, okay? The take is that Ridgeway was actually more valuable to trade than Mathis. Mathis is a fine player, a guy you can keep, especially as your third or fourth defensive tackle. Ridgeway is a guy who you can actually get something from. And I get that most people would say that a 6 isn't much, but in the right hands, a 6th-round pick could net you something better than what you're getting out of a third or fourth string defensive tackle, which is what Ridgeway was here in Washington.
So kind of along the same lines as last year with Sweat, right? They weren't necessarily wanting to trade him, but they got an offer kind of they couldn't refuse, right? So it was either going to be Ridgeway or Mathis, and they got something for Ridgeway, and nobody was willing to give anything for Mathis, and they kind of saw them as interchangeable, right? Either one, they're not going to see a lot of snaps. So if we can get anything for either one of these guys, and it seems like Ridgeway is a guy we can get something for, then then maybe you go ahead and make that deal. But all things being equal, maybe Ridgeway makes the team and Mathis gets cut. But they got an offer for him as non-valuable as it can be, a 6th-rounder. You go ahead and get something for him.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, this is a guy you may or may not have released, or you release Mathis and you still don't get anything here. Gus Bus here asking, we received multiple offers and all we got was to move up from the 7th to the 6th round. You got to think this was a 5th-round pick originally, not your own, Dallas's, that you picked up off of a practice squad. So you have, outside of a couple years investment here, you don't have any, draft stock in this guy. So even if you did have a 5th-round pick, you're still getting value. This is 5th to a 6th round. Okay. We just traded a 1st-round pick wide receiver for a 3rd-round pick. Okay. Yeah. You very rarely, when you're doing these kind of things, because you're not trading away NFL top 100 type players. All right. That just doesn't happen very often.
Right.
You're trading away these guys who are role players on your team to see if you could get something for them before moving on from their contract and trying to pay somebody a little bit cheaper on the deal, right? You have Johnny Newton, who's on a rookie contract, defensive tackle, who you really like.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you rather have? Would you rather have John Ridgeway as your number 4 defensive tackle, or would you rather have Fedarian Mathis as your number 4 defensive tackle and a 6th rounder?
I'll take
Give me Phidarian Mathis in the 6th rounder.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of
to be honest,
what you're looking at.
To be honest, outside the body slam from Ridgeway a couple seasons ago or last season, whatever that was, and he might have shined in the preseason game against the Patriots.
Yeah.
He didn't do much for me. I'm not too mad about trading him away. I mean, I know it's depth or whatever, but like Nathan said, we signed him from a practice squad first, like not active roster. We didn't make a trade for him. We signed him off the practice squad. And the only reason why he got a name here is because our defensive line outside of Payne and Allen was atrocious. So, of course, he got more playing time. Of course, he got to get his name out there. But he didn't move the needle for me outside that body slam, which was cool for the moment. But
Stoner always loves to point out he got penalized for that. So as cool as it was, it hurt the team.
Didn't he have another play? Was he not? And I'm trying to remember. So help me out here. If my memory is gone, I totally understand it. But did he not in one of the games that maybe it was Minnesota? I don't know why Minnesota's in my head, but they were about to kick a field goal. But he jumped off.
He jumped. Yeah, he jumped. Didn't he jump over a player? Like you can't
something
jump over
like that. And they got maybe a first down, or they got another chance or something, and they scored a touchdown. Yeah. So that was that was another negative play on his resume. Now that's all in the past, and I don't think Dan Quinn and Adam Peters really care about that stuff.
No, he gone.
But if you can get any sort of value out of any end of the roster guy, we're talking about. John Ridgeway was roster number 48, somewhere around there, right? How many snaps is a number 4 defensive tackle going to get through the course of a game? 10 at most?
Yeah, I'm actually about to check his
goose
snap
eggs
count for the record.
Exactly.
His snap count from last year?
I'm going to check out John Ridgway's snap count from last year. Let's see.
Yeah, but how many guys suit up on game day and get 0 snaps? There are a few that happens to. And if you are number 4 defensive tackle on a team with John Allen, Johnny Newton, and Deron Payne, and a defense that likes to have 5-man fronts sometimes, 3-man fronts, whatever it may be, I don't know that you're going to get a lot of playing time anyway. So we are kind of nitpicking at a very end of the roster kind of player.
Yeah. He did see 31% of the defensive snaps last year
for the year
before.
But that's not terrible.
I feel like we're overvaluing it. If you think back to when the Mathis pick, which Stoner hates with a passion, I'm not a big fan of it either. But Mathis was drafted to replace a couple of guys that we liked, Matty Ice and Tim Settle, right?
Oh, yeah.
He was supposed to replace 55% of the snaps. That was your 3rd defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Ridgeway's your 4th defensive tackle with 31%. Mathis is now going to be in for 31% of the snaps, and you expect what should be a healthy Johnny Newton coming in and relieving Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne there with more than like 50% of the snaps.
For the record, for anybody who didn't hear before, I didn't like the draft pick of Phidarian Mathis. And by the way, at the time, it wasn't Phidarian Mathis. It was a defensive tackle with the 2nd round pick. But I did also predict that Phidarian Mathis was going to make this roster. I did see him pop in training camp and in the preseason, and I thought he had a good chance to make it. So I'm glad, if for no other reason than to, give myself a pat on the back to say I predicted.
Not you, Stoner. You would never try to self-pat yourself.
No, I wouldn't do that
one. Not at all. And so that answers Ellison's question here. And what has Mathis done exactly to warrant a roster spot? And I do feel, besides the fact that Stoner says he popped, Trev, I feel that Mathis is possibly a little bit more well-rounded. I think Ridgeway might be a bit better attacker, but Mathis is a roadblock, which is what I think they need on that defensive tackle spot after the likes of Allen, Payne, and Newton. They don't necessarily need another attacker because Mathis can attack. There's a great clip of him against New England where he gets after Jacoby Brissett. All right. So it's not that he can't do it, but he is also a much better, I think, more well-rounded player And that's what you're looking for with your fourth defensive tackle. To answer Allison's question here, thank you for commenting. One of the other, maybe not so much surprises, but I did talk about this, and we know EP was disappointed in this one, was Martavius Bryant.
Yeah.
Sheldon asking, why did we not keep Bryant? A big physical wide receiver, something we don't have, although we did just get a 6'2" blocking wide receiver who can also catch the ball. Why wasn't Martavius Bryant kept here in Washington? Not the practice squad, not the 53. Mm-hmm. Why did we not keep this old wide receiver?
I honestly don't know because, like you said, he shined in the third preseason game. He's had a tough road back to getting reinstated by NFL. He got down in shape. He's an excellent blocking wide receiver. Dan Quinn endorsed that. I don't know. I don't know. It's just very, very interesting to me why we let him go and we kept Byron Pringle. Or
we signed Mitchell Tinsley guy.
No, I know. Or why we kept Tremaine and Tinsley on the practice squad when we've seen what they can do active and inactive, which is nothing. So, I mean, if you ask me, I think Bryant outshined them both during the preseason, and they've been with the team for 2+ years. I don't know. It's a head scratcher. Maybe we sign him down the road if he doesn't go anywhere else. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. It's just I don't know.
He had 3 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown against New England. I'm not necessarily thinking that he shined. It's
preseason, game 3.
You said he shined.
Well, he hasn't played. He hasn't scored a touchdown in NFL in 7 years.
Okay.
Wasn't it Stoner last year? Was it Stoner or was it you, Trev, who was just like he balled out and we said the same thing. It was just like it was like 3. It was Stoner. It was like 3 catches for like 13 yards or whatever. And was like, that's not balling out.
I mean, for what it's worth, in the third preseason going against a bunch of nobodies, he balled out. Okay. I mean, not like starter. He doesn't deserve starter reps, maybe, or something like that. But at least practice squad, I thought he'd come back and they could,
I did think the size and the blocking ability was his in. But I mean, Byron Pringle's no slouch at blocking. De'Ami Brown is shown to be pretty vicious. I don't think you need to be a big wide receiver to be a blocker. I think you just need to have that attitude. And it's not to say Bryant didn't have that attitude. I just think that they had other guys. Now, I was wrong on my prediction. I said out of Crowder, Pringle, and Bryant, only one of them was going to make the roster. Crowder and Pringle both made the roster. So I was wrong on that prediction.
The old back.
I mean, I had Crowder making it all along.
I said Crowder and Pringle are both making it. I never saw anything from Bryant. I was not a Bryant guy. I wasn't.
He was a touch slow.
Understand the love affair that
practice squad
had with him. Maybe
at least practice squad, I guess. Yeah, over Mitchell Tinsley, who spent more time on the ground than he did running routes.
You're gonna take a 32-year-old over a 22-year-old for your practice.
I'm taking the young guy.
I'm taking the young guy and developing him.
Why not?
The best I can. But
he hasn't developed in 2 years. What are we waiting on?
I thought the whole process of bringing him in, was kind of wacky. Bringing him in when they did and how they did, I thought it was all kind of a little bit wacky, and I didn't see anything from him, so I wasn't surprised that he was cut. Maybe I'm surprised that he's not on the practice squad, but I guess. But then again, you could have the benefit of hindsight, right? Let's look at it this way. What would you rather have, Noah Brown or Martavis Bryant?
Yeah,
I
think one of the other things besides DMV Bay here mentioning scheme, because I think he fits the scheme fine as a blocking wide receiver. I think one of the other things to this is something we've mentioned here before. This isn't necessarily a win now roster. Okay. They're going to try to compete and they're going to fight, but this isn't a team. This is why they haven't gone after Brandon Ayuk. Okay. That and the trade cost is far too much. But this is not a team that's designed to chase the Super Bowl now or never, which is when you take up a 34-year-old and Bryant, you're looking for that vet experience to help your younger guys push them over that edge and someone to rely on. No, this is a team that they're trying to build over the next few years, which is why, as you mentioned, Stoner, you take that 22-year-old. You take those younger guys, and you know, if you have struggles, you put them in, you see if they've got anything. If not, you're going to be back in the drawing board and drafting and taking undrafted free agents.
I just think it was interesting all around, not just with Bryant. And I know you brought Bryant up and you brought some of these other guys up, but just again, kind of the overall look and feel of this roster. We all thought that a lot of these guys who are on the roster were going to be moved and replaced in the waiver wire. Now, maybe Carolina took all of the corners, and so they didn't see any corners that were left. But it is definitely not, when you look at it from a whole, it's definitely not a win now roster. I can see that. We can all see that. And if we look at the wide receivers, especially, let's just say, if you looked at another team and let's just say their wide receivers 1 through 3 were, I'm going to pick a team within the division. Let's say Neighbors, Malik Neighbors, De'Ami Brown, and Zacchaeus. If we're the Washington Commanders looking at that receiver room, we would just say, holy cow, that is a bunch of garbage, right? We would say that looking at somebody else. We would say, well, Malik Neighbors looks like he's the real deal, and he's going to be pretty darn good, right? But that's your 2 and 3 is De'Ami Brown and Zacchaeus, a guy who's done nothing in 3 years, and another guy who's
nothing. But yeah,
I'm talking about De'Ami Brown.
I mean,
that guy, yeah, he has done nothing. I thought you were talking about Zacchaeus. I was like, he's a pretty decent 3.
He's a journeyman. Sure. This is on his third team already in 6 years, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And he's had some decent seasons. You're not afraid of that. And so that's kind of how I look at this whole roster. There are some pieces here and there that are going to look good, but this is a far from winning type roster at this point. And that's one of the things that surprised me, that they didn't go after some other guys who were available through the waiver process. It doesn't cost you anything in the waiver process. Yeah. It costs you nothing other than they have to be on your roster. You
have to put them on roster. 53, sure.
But it costs you absolutely nothing. And they had the second choice. So they had a choice of how many did Carolina select? 5. They claimed 5 guys off of waivers. Yeah, and I think it's 5. Maybe it was 6. But let's say it's 6. There are 982 guys that they had a choice of, and they said 982 guys are not better than the 53 we've got here, and that's surprising to me.
I don't know if it's really surprising, because once you go on the waiver, these are pretty much players you want to pick up on your practice squad. They're not really
not
like
53 guys.
Yeah, not 53 guys. Now, like the Noah Brown case, he was a free agent. So he's a veteran. Allen Robinson signed with somebody else, a veteran free agent. So that's where we should probably look for help, not from the waiver wire. And then Adam Peters said we have it for the first 3 weeks. So we could maybe claim somebody else that goes on the waiver wire by the time. So
that is something I think. Go ahead, Trent.
It just wasn't appealing this first go around off the waiver wire, if you ask me. Nothing really jumped out like, oh, we should claim. It's like, for what? Like, to put, like, we got Bobby Price. We talked about in the group chat. 4 years in Detroit, 190 snaps, 3 PBUs, no interceptions. We claimed him off waiver wires. See what that doesn't do anything for us. It just puts us, it fills a practice squad spot. So it's like nothing really stood out to me like, oh, we should make a claim right now just because we have number 2. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing.
So the claims thing, you mentioned a couple important notes there, Trev, because I think a lot of people, maybe if they're just familiar with fantasy, they treat it like fantasy. You got the second waiver pick, you use it, you move to the back of the line. That's not how the NFL works.
No.
Washington has that second waiver priority. So it means that if a guy goes on to waivers, Carolina has a chance at them, and then Washington has a chance at them. And that's going to be true, as Trev mentioned, for the next 3 weeks. It doesn't change until week 4.
Yeah, right. Up to week 3. So the next 5 weeks.
So next 5 weeks. You're right. Yeah. So week 3 of the NFL. So there's plenty of time if somebody drops for them to be able to use that priority. Was it still a shock that they didn't use it? 900 plus guys, as Stoner mentioned, and they just said no. I think it is a little bit.
I was surprised because hopefully you will never ever be in this position again where you're number 2 on the waiver wire, right? It's based on the worst records from last year. Only Carolina had a worse record than Washington. So you hope you're never going to be here. So next year, maybe you're at 15. So now your chances of picking a guy up are not as good because you've got 14 teams ahead of you with the opportunity to claim a guy. So that's all it was surprising. I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing it or that they're doing it wrong. It was just very surprising that they didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And you're right, though. There is down the road.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's just say somebody gets signed and then they have to dump a starter because it's just the way the numbers are for them. And then that's when you want to make that claim. At that point.
It can only be for players that are not vested, right? Not vested veterans, which are 4-year players or more and everything like that. But that is something because, as Trev mentioned, if you take a claim, that's a 53 player. And that's one of the things I'm going to correct here for Brian. Trev is specifically mentioning how they didn't put a claim because none of those 900 plus guys were 53 guys. They're practice guys. So why put in a claim for them and lose one of your 53 guys for a guy who you don't want on your 53? You want on the practice squad. You can wait for that.
Exactly.
You can be patient. And at Uptown Dre, yes, we're staying at 2 for the first until up to week 3 of the NFL. So we've got it for 5 weeks. It doesn't rotate. Carolina used it 5 or 6 times today, and they can keep using it up until week 3. So it's not something you got to wait for that right guy. You use it when you find a guy. Adam Peters didn't find a guy. They like their roster.
And I trust Adam Peters. I trust Adam Peters.
You're right. You
scouts. You have
I trust
all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I feel like we're kind of used to the previous regimes that when we see a name on claim on waivers, we just go and take them and they don't contribute. John Ridgeway, what happened with him? He gone after 2 years. That's another that we claimed off waivers. So it's like we don't need to jump in the pool just because it's a pool day right now.
More often than not, you're going to get a guy off of waivers who is an end of roster guy. You're not grabbing just like the practice squad, right? You're not stashing Hall of Fame talent on the practice squad. So Yam here talked about the roster as a whole. We are weak in multiple areas still. The best thing, though, is we have arguably one of the best linebacker cores now. My God, how did Ron and JDR neglect linebackers so bad? Regardless of what Ron did, because 90% of his team isn't even here. I mean, it almost looked like Adam Peters was deliberately like, this guy was drafted by Ron Rivera. He's gone. Now, Marty and Marty were there, and they're still here, and they had something to say in it. So I wonder how they feel about their drafts over the last couple of years being empty, because 2023's draft is down to like a couple players now.
Yeah, last year's draft.
Last year's draft
has
last year's 2.
Juan Harden.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
The first pick and the second pick. Everybody else is gone. The draft before
that's crazy.
Just decimated.
They made 33 selections in 4 years, and there are 12 guys left from 33 selections.
So bad.
12.
That's it.
Your best players are still guys who were drafted before. With Terry and John and
John Allen. Yeah.
Jeez.
I have an exercise for us.
All right.
We're going to look at the 53. We're actually going to go piece by piece here.
Oh, that.
All right. No physical activity for the old man. We don't need to break you, Stoner.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're not gonna do that kind of physical activity.
Oh, can I real quick? I did want to take umbrage, and you guys can tell me if I'm way off base on this. I don't think we have one of the best linebacker cores in the league. I think we have
piggyback on that.
Some excellent starting linebackers.
Sure. Yeah, but I don't like.
But who are the backups right now?
I was gonna say when something happens, who we got? Michael Walker. We let Anthony Pittman go. So it's like
who are the backup
Walker,
linebackers
Dominic
right
Hampton,
now?
and Dante Fowler Jr. Damon Davis probably moves up. McGee, Todd had asked about McGee. He has a meniscus injury. He's on the short-term IR. He can't come back until week 5. I can tell you this, Todd. They love McGee.
Yeah, I agree. They do.
When he comes back, expect either Hampton or Walker to get their papers. Probably head to the practice squad.
Yeah,
but they're gone. McGee is somebody who they see as a future starter for this team. But yes, he is. He does have an injury. It's looking good. It's not what they feared originally. So it looks like they will get him back. So let's Wagner
and
Chiggy did make practice squad for the record.
Wagner and Luvu, fantastic starters, but linebacker core, I would not put us up there towards the top. But
all right,
it's good stuff.
We're right now looking at that defensive side. Let's move over here. Little exercise, please, and for all those 160 plus people who are watching right now, please participate. Join the conversation. We love to hear from you. Make sure you've already liked this, comment as you are, and share it as well. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the 53 roster, and I need your guys' assistance here to help me list whether or not this person is a stud. We're going to put them in gold. Good. We're going to put them in as approximation of burgundy because the actual burgundy was too dark. Stoner was like, I can't read that even with my glasses.
I'm over here like,
so this is an approximation of our burgundy. And then the Jags are just going to stay clear box. Okay.
I lowercase too.
Lowercase Jag. Lowercase Jag here.
This is going
All
to be
right.
fun.
So for the QBs, we have Jayden Daniels.
Even though he's never thrown a pass or taken a snap in an actual NFL game, he's a stud. Just don't look. My Jayden Daniels tracker, my training camp tracker, I had one not good, and I don't know how many goods. He's the real deal. Let's not try to worry about jinxing it or anything. He's a stud. Anybody have a disagree with that?
No.
There's going to be a lot of this, Gus, saying cannot be a stud. We haven't seen it.
Can.
Yam saying jinxing it again.
Hey, remember 2 years ago when you guys said I jinxed that Terry? I said Terry never gets hurt or whatever, and you were like, he didn't get hurt.
Brian,
he's
he's good.
What are we doing? Are we on all of a sudden he's an average quarterback?
He won the highest.
Good is above average. Jag is average. Jag is just another guy. Stud potential is what JG says.
You have
fine.
Out, Stoner. If Howell is him, is Daniels.
He's a stud.
Look, I got 99% right. I whiffed on Howell halfway through the year, and I was the guy who said Howell was terrible.
Yeah, you started off Howell was terrible. We swapped. You and I swapped their pick, who had a horrible prediction for his 53 wide receivers. Coming here as there's wait and see color. I didn't want it that. I wanted it burgundy. I wanted gold for your studs. I wanted burgundy for your good players, and everybody else is just going to be there. It looks like overwhelmingly we're going to go with a stud.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I agree with those who are wanting to wait and see. I will say that this is stud potential. I'm saying this guy could be a difference maker for Washington. He looks the part. I'm not saying he won't struggle. There's high potential that that's going to happen. And I'm not expecting him to light the world on fire. But I think he's going to be a good quarterback for Washington. When I say good, I don't mean just good. I mean, I think that he is going to be a stud. So we're going to put him at the stud. Marcus Mariota, Driscoll, those are Jags.
Yes.
Both
Nothing behind him.
I would have rather kept Trace McSorley over Jeff Driscoll because Trace McSorley, however you say his last name, local kid, and he moved the ball downfield and scored points. He showed way better
against guys who are bagging groceries at Hy-Vee. I'm not.
Jeff Driscoll has been on how many teams and still can't get a starting spot outright. So or back
DMV saying Driscoll's good.
Oh my God, he is not.
He's a Jag.
He's a Jag.
Yep.
Yeah. Dante KJ Henry was picked up by Cincinnati, so that one he won't be not coming back here. All right, let's move on to the running backs. B-Rob, who's the only junior for some reason that I decided to all caps for the record. I haven't fixed it, but he is all caps there. B-Rob, Eckler, and Nichols are the running backs for the 53. I don't see a stud here. I'm going to be quite honest.
He's good. He's good.
I'm not going to put anybody in the stud category.
Come on.
Austin Eckler is a stud, bro. He has
Austin Eckler's a stud. Thank you, Trev.
He has like almost 1,000 million bajillion touchdowns in the red zone. He just was on the Chargers for his whole career, so it's kind of overshadowed. We didn't see him as much because we don't get those games, but that dude's a stud, bro.
He's a stud. If he's healthy, that's the only reason that he had any issues is that he was not healthy last year.
Yeah,
and it wasn't a knee. It wasn't something major. It was an ankle. And now he's healthy. Austin Eckler is a stud. Brian Robinson Jr., even though I famously called him a jag last year,
Locked on law.
He is good.
Yeah. I will agree on B-Rob being good. I will agree with him being a good back. I have a lot of problems trying to say that Eckler's a stud.
Why is he not a stud?
Please explain to me.
Okay.
Don't use injury as an excuse. Please explain to me how Eckler at, what is he now, 30-something years old?
Oh, I think he's maybe 30. Let's find out. He is
29 years old.
Yep.
103 days. All right. So he's 29 years old. Explain to me how in his 29th year of living and around this earth that he is a stud when he's never had a single 1,000-yard rushing season.
That's fine.
And he's never had a single 1,000-yard receiving season. That is not a stud,
touchdowns that man had.
He is good. He is good. He is not a stud.
Oh my goodness. I don't think you understand the value of a touchdown. Touchdowns are kind of important. He had 6 touchdowns last year in 14 games and over 1,000 total yards. In only 14 games, he was hurt most of the year. Some of those games he was not completely healthy. But you look at the 2 years prior to that, he had a total of
20,
almost 40 touchdowns in 2 years.
Yeah, 12 the year before that, I think. No, sorry. Actually, he had.
I'm with you, Stoner. That man's a stud.
Nathan. He had 107 catches in 2022.
I mean, come on, bro.
I need my chat to come out here. Jersey,
I need your definition of a stud.
Yeah, stud is a cornerstone player.
He had
a guy who you have to game plan against. A guy who, if you were to trade him, you're getting top dollar. You're not having to go and get something. I think Eckler, great, upper tier, but not a stud. He's good. Locked on law, stud 5 years ago.
That's not true. It was his best years were 2 years ago and 3 years ago. And last year was a decent year, but again, he was hurt for quite a bit of the year and still put up 1,000 combined yards and 6 touchdowns. Has how many people have done that? Terry McLaurin, I'm sure we're going to get to, is a stud, and he barely gets to 1,000 and 6 touchdowns every year. Austin Eckler does it every single year. Let me just ask you this:
where we don't score touchdowns,
is Terry McLaurin a stud?
We'll
get to there. Hold on. We'll get to there. Hold on. Because everybody's gonna say because they like him and he's so nice and community.
He's valuable, and he's a top 100 player now. He's a top 100 player.
He's not. He's a wide receiver number 2 and 3 on anybody else's team. I just want to say that, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. Jeremy Nichols.
And it's Jeremy McNichols, by the way, but he's a jag.
He's a McJag.
He's a jag. I like Jeremy.
Go ahead and put that yellow up there. Go ahead and put that yellow up there in Austin Eckler.
Yeah, put the yellow on Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I'm not buying the arguments, gentlemen. I'm putting this good.
Oh my god,
it's not a bit.
I thought 2 against 1 got the color.
Pick was asking, is a bit? It's not a bit. Okay.
No.
I like Austin Eckler. I think he's great. Here's the thing with touchdowns is they're not predictable. Okay. They're honestly,
he's going to get 20 every year.
When you're talking about that, Eric, you're right. He's a stud for fantasy, right? Because those touchdowns are pretty good. But here's the thing. Fantasy is not real NFL. Okay. I get that the touchdowns are important, and that means that the Chargers used him in the red zone a lot. Washington, Cliff Kingsbury might not use him in the red zone here. Okay. Touchdowns, they come and go. You need consistency. He's not always available. He's never had 1,000 yards rushing or receiving.
That doesn't
His
matter,
per average is still nothing to write home about. It's not like this guy he has 3.5 yards a carry, 8.5 yards of reception. That's not stud category, gentlemen, just because he's
a running back
touchdowns.
As a running back, it is. I'm sorry. 1,600 yards 2 years in a row combined and almost 20 touchdowns 2 years in a row. That's a stud running back.
That's a stud, bro.
That's a stud.
Nathan.
I'm sorry. He's a stud.
Come on. All right.
We're
going to be here forever.
Control here. So we're going to move on to Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott, and Colson Yankoff. Somewhat of a surprise, making the 53 here. One of the guys that Dan Quinn did talk about. A guy who's likely on the practice squad before week 1. But did make the initial 53 here. How do you guys feel about this tight end room? This was one of the rooms that Adam Peters did highlight as a strength.
I don't really view Zach Ertz as a stud. I think he's upper tier. I don't think he's a stud, so he's good. He's good.
I got good Jag.
Yep, good Jag. I'll go with that.
I will say this is good. I'm glad to hear that Stoner's come around to Bates being a good player. Ben Sinnott, improved. I don't think we've seen enough to label him as good right now. I'm not necessarily I'm not trying to call him a jag, but unlike Jayden Daniels, who we've seen a lot of strong potential and are very excited about, I know we're excited about Ben Sinnott, and he had that one catch and just ran over 3 or 4 guys. I don't know that this year's Trev, you got the face palm ready. And we've already got DMV and everybody over here probably already getting on me about this.
Yeah,
Ben Sinnott this year is going to have way lower numbers than most people are expecting.
As long as Zach Ertz is healthy, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But I will say that when you come to these rookies and you kind of asked the question before, do you have a it's too early to tell category, right? But we have to do that with the rookies. We got to put them in one of these categories. If you're a 3rd round pick, as Ben Sinnott was, I think you have to go into the good category.
You have to.
At this point.
By pick status?
Yeah. I mean, look what he did in college. I mean, I'm going off the tape we have.
And you haven't heard anything. All you've heard is good stuff about him. So, yeah.
Put him as good, please.
Good.
Please.
Good, Jag.
Right.
Why do you take it off? Why take it off
good. I'll concede the tight end room. We'll say we have good tight ends. I do like the tight end room. I think it's going to be pretty good for Jayden Daniels and efficient. Good to me, and we were looking for definitions earlier. Good to me, right? If you're a Jag, you're an average player. You're at 50%. You're on everybody's roster as the 3rd or 4th guy, right? Good is an above average player. You're going to be starting on half of the rosters, okay? Or you're going to be second string, seeing a lot of snaps. That's a good player. And a stud is you're starting on pretty much everybody's roster because you're just that good. That's how I'm looking at this.
Fair.
And I just don't know that we're hitting the mark with some of these. All right. Well, let's get to the wide receivers. Terry McLaurin, top 100. Stoner put in the question.
He's good.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's an absolute stud, and there's no two ways of looking at it. He's not a top 10 wide receiver in the league.
Okay, so he's not a stud.
But he's a top 15 receiver in the league.
You just said it. You just said it right there. Right there.
No, don't. Terry is a stud. Sorry. Any team would die to have Terry McLaurin on.
No, they would not, bro.
What's his name just came out today? Mike Evans.
That was an old video. That was an older video. Okay, he's underrated. Doesn't mean he's a stud.
Yeah. It does. He's
Terry
a stud.
McLaurin is a starter on all 32 rosters, Trev.
Correct.
He might not
Okay,
be
but
wide
not a
receiver
stud.
one on all those
Okay,
rosters.
then he's not a stud. In my opinion, wide receiver 1 is a stud. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans. I can keep going.
Those are
Cooper
good
Kupp.
and those are better, but we're talking about a top 15, even if top 20 wide receiver, that's a
He's
stud.
good. He's
No.
good.
So if you're in the NFL top
literally
100,
try to tell me Austin Eckler, who's nowhere near the top 15 or 20
Production.
in his position, is a stud.
Production
Terry McLaurin
matters.
is
Yes, he's
legit
had over
a top
1,000
15 to
yards.
20 player.
Yes, he's had over 1,000 yards in the past 4 years. That's no slouch. But come on, man. Let's just be real. Let's not be Asperger's syndrome. He's a great receiver.
Oh my
But
lord!
thank you. He's good.
just
He's not a
called
stud.
Some guys who are probably
You
close to
double
the
team
Jags.
him, he's done. You double team him, he's done. It's not hard.
Oh,
People
my
game plan
goodness.
for him and they shut him down. I mean, he has great moments. The catch against Stephon Gilmore, the catch against in the Chargers, that crazy catch did there. He had a nice yak out in the preseason. But I mean, thank you. Top 100 does not mean stud. It just
doesn't?
means you're no.
That's what Gus says. Doesn't mean stud. Montez
No.
Sweat, top 100, very
He's
good.
not and he's not a stud. Come on, man.
I got bad
He's not-
news
he's
for
not-
y'all.
Nah,
Montez
man.
Sweat
I've stood by this since day one. He's good. He's not a stud. He's easily game plannable.
We're gonna move on because I don't think we're ever gonna get him there. But the
I'm not.
Trev,
He's good.
we're talking
He's
about
good,
a guy who is easily top 20 in the wide receiver room.
That doesn't mean he's a stud.
Again, I don't know where
if
we're
he's
moving
top
these
20,
goalposts here because
let's-
you
let's
have
do the one.
Eckler
I'm
as a
gonna look
stud.
this up. I'm gonna look this
You know
up
what,
right
Nathan?
now.
It's 2-1. Trev
Yeah.
loses
That
this
was-
one.
Moving
Sorry.
on.
It was
De'Ami Brown,
When he
Jag.
made him good. I don't
Luke
want to hear that.
McCaffrey, not ready to call him good. He's a Jag. Zacchaeus, Jag. I'm fine listing him as a Jag. I have high hopes for him. He had a pretty good year last year. Crowder, Jag. Byron Pringle, Jag. Noah Brown. A lot of questions about him. He's a Jag.
Mhm.
He's
But I
a
think
Jag.
that's a
But
good
Brent
pickup.
here was asking earlier, I wonder why no one else signed Noah Brown. Was he a problem or injury prone?
I can
Is
answer
this his
that.
third
He was
team?
he was in Dallas for like 5 years, and he was always plagued by injuries. I looked up right before the show. Always plagued by injuries. Last season in Houston was his best season, and it still wasn't even that great, but it was the best season for him.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody. I mean, not saying nobody else tried to offer to sign him. He only signed for us for a year. We don't know how much money or whatever else, but like, yeah, he's injury prone. Just, but it is what it is. Top 20 wide receivers. I just Googled it. I'm going to say it real fast, and then tell me if you hear Terry McLaurin in it or not.
Who's
Jefferson.
top
Who
20?
says? Who's top
This is
20?
from sources from across the web. Just listen to the names. You tell
Google
AI.
You
gotcha.
ready? Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Puka, Chris Olave, Nico Collins, and Calvin Johnson.
Who's Calvin
That's
Johnson?
top 20 right there.
Who's Calvin Johnson? Megatron?
So they added-
Is he
they
still
added
in
him
the
there,
league?
yeah.
That's why
All
you
right,
can't trust AI.
subtract him, and you got Nico Collins at the end. You think
Yeah.
Terry belongs in that stature, or he's
I'd
now
put him
the
above
next-
Nico Collins, but yeah.
Well, that's fine, but everybody else, I would not put him up against. No way.
It's weird because didn't we have this
No way.
argument like 2 years ago
No
when
way.
I was the one saying that Terry's not a top 10 guy and
Yeah.
you guys were trying to convince me that
I
he was
was-
top 10?
I've never thought that. If I did, I must have been drinking. But
Yeah. I've always
I've never
thought of
that.
him as about 12 to 15. And
All
if you're
those
12 to
names-
15, you're a stud.
All those names, you got to extremely game plan for. Terry McLaurin, you put two corners on him, he's done.
All right.
He's done.
Well, too bad. 2-1. And I agree with Trev that Austin Eckler should be in gold because it was 2-1.
Thank you.
Me and Trev both thought he should be.
Yeah, but I control it. I control it.
That's right.
Yeah, Mike, I just want to point out that Stoner knows exactly who Calvin Johnson is. He was questioning it
Megatron.
because Trev was reading this off as the top 20 wide receiver list, as in like they were active, and listing Calvin Johnson there a little bit of an.
It's fine. Everyone else is active.
Yeah, but that's just kind of
it puts your list.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
When his deal expires in when he's not up for a new deal, let's just see the market for that. Let's see how much he's willing.
He'll
to
also
pay,
be a wide receiver north of 30 for the record, so that's a little bit of a difference maker here. Let's answer Jordan's question while we're on the wide receivers, because we agree that it's Terry McLaurin and a bunch of Jags.
I don't agree with Luke McCaffrey's a third round pick as a Jag, but
I know you have this weird thing about third round picks got to be good.
I think
you want them to be good, Stoner. Noah Brown, where does he fit in now that the team picked him up? Where is he? Wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4? Jordan wants to know.
Not a clue. I have no idea how he's going to fit into this room. We got to see him. We got to see how he fits into the system.
Basing it off production from his years in Dallas and Houston, 4, 5. He's not number 2. Like, he didn't even get close to 700 yards total for a season. It's right there at 500 or some mediocre. His best game, he had 7 catches.
Any guy on our roster has ever had, other than McLaurin.
I think I think he's after Brown, McCaffrey, Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if it's Crowder, Pringle, or Brown as that 5th wide receiver.
That signing does nothing for me.
It will also be surprising, or not. It will be interesting to see if one of these wide receivers ends up, getting the boot when Jordan McGee comes back from injury, or they find another free agent guy that, if that's where it's going to come from, the wide receiver room, because 7 has always seemed like a lot to me.
Oh, Maurice pretty high. Brown is a 2 or 3. CC
man.
I mean, I have no idea.
He had one good game against in Houston last year with 7 catches, barely over 150 yards. After that,
how many?
Crickets. 7.
Yeah, crickets. By the way, people I notice have commented. Trev has crickets in the room, and the chirping, the chirping's kind of noticeable. It's kind of. I had to sit there and mute us individually. It's like, who has the crickets? But yeah, TJ calling Stoner out here with Stoner's logic. That means Fedarian Mathis isn't a Jag because he was.
Why not? What's the?
He was a 2nd round pick. Can't be a Jag.
He's played for 2 years. We're talking about rookies.
Fresh picks.
Fresh picks. Mathis has played for 2 years, so we can call him a Jag.
Brandon Coleman, 3rd round pick, has to be a stud.
Why?
That's Stoner's.
No. I said good.
Oh, it has to be good.
Yeah, has to be good. And since Brandon Coleman has not even played in a preseason game, at least McCaffrey has played, I'm okay with putting all of those guys as Jags, except for I'll give Biotish a good. I'll give Cosby a stud, and I'll give everybody else Jags.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. And even Nick Allegretti, your boy Nick Allegretti is a Jag.
He's a Jag.
Yeah, he's a Jag. I like him, but he's still a Jag.
Gus, you're gonna have to remind me your definition here, as far as that one there. But yeah, Cosme's a stud.
They need to sign him.
Is listed everywhere right now as a top 10 guard. No matter where you look, he needs a contract ASAP because after this year, it's only going to get more expensive. Biotish has had several good seasons, a Pro Bowl in there. Good center, and happy he's here. Everybody else,
Jags.
Yeah. All right, moving to the defensive side. Allen Payne, Newton Mathis, Ridgeway traded earlier today. Yeah. So I think we can all agree this guy right here is easily a stud. Jonathan Allen, an easy stud.
Deron Payne's a stud.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And we're good with those guys being Jags for now. Johnny Newton.
No, Newton's good. He's a 2nd rounder, right?
He's a 2nd rounder, but he's got some injuries right now. I'm hesitant, Stoner, outside of the ones we've seen flash serious potential. If you're a rookie and we're talking about camp and joint practices and preseason, And Johnny Newton hasn't done any of that because he's been sidelined due to 2 Jones fractures and a soft tissue injury. I have strong issue as much, and you know how much I love Johnny Newton.
Yeah.
This guy is going to be good.
I like this right here from Gus Bus, and I'm kind of sitting here with him on that.
Oh, that's
So
right.
that's the
Gus
definition
was
of
saying a first round pick. This is his standard. A stud, you get a first round pick. Good, at least a third pick in the trade back.
So are we saying that Jahan Dotson was good? Because they got a third rounder?
He was good. He wasn't a stud.
People don't seem to like Allen and Payne. Like Trev hated Allen last year because he was the leader of the defense and he was the guy who had the huddle going and everything. And Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne are studs. They are fantastic defensive tackles, and we're lucky to have them on this team. We have to stop the slander with those 2 guys. Stop it.
Yeah, I really don't understand the Jonathan Allen hate. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Just last year for me, his production didn't follow his hype. That's all.
I think his production was down a little bit. I think you're probably right, but from high stud to low stud, how's that? Still a stud. I mean, I think Aaron Donald, his production last year wasn't as great. Still a stud.
He's a stud.
Right. I mean, he's a stud.
Defensive player of the year.
I'm not comparing them, by the way. I'm just saying that you can still be a stud and have sort of a down year.
Sure. Yeah. Jordan saying that same thing. Studs have down years. It happens. Yeah, I also don't think it was as bad as people think. I think it was just the defense itself was really bad.
Yeah.
And so even though he just had a kind of an average season, people were like, oh, he sucks. Well, I don't know about that, Gus Bus. For those audio listeners there, Jonathan Allen is the defensive Terry McLaurin. A lot of value to us, but not in game records league-wide.
I mean, I just totally disagree with that on both sides.
Yeah,
with McLaurin and Payne and Allen. I don't think we glorify them just because they're here. I think they are actually excellent football players.
They're not.
All right, let's go defensive ends.
All right, defensive ends.
Where we got 4 Jags. All right,
4 Jags on defensive. This is the position that I'm most concerned about. And that's saying something, because we're going to get the cornerbacks, and there's one guy in that room, and the rest are bad. But this defensive edge rushing right here, not good. Bad. And I will say, going to rear its head.
I'll say Dorrance Armstrong. I do like. I think he's good, but I probably can't talk you guys into it. I think he's good. I think he's a good football player.
I hope that he's going to end up being good. But right now. Right now, I'm not excited about it. All right, linebackers. One of the things that started this one, Bobby Wagner, Luvu, Fowler Jr., Walker, and Hampton. Wagner, Hall of Famer. I think he's a little down, but I'm not having Wagner come after me. He's still a stud.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I would put Luvu at good, and I might get some hate for it.
No, I like it. I think he's good. I'm not ready to put him at stud yet, because this is his 3rd team. I don't know how many years. He's with the Jets, then Panthers, and us. But he was a good building block for the linebacker.
I'm very excited for him.
Yes.
Very excited for him.
But he's not a stud.
But I think that he's maybe just good.
I will give you good, but I will guarantee that if we do this again at the end of the year, he'll be in the stud.
Would love to see it. Would love to see it.
And then
Fowler, Walker, Hampton, Jags. Safety room. Great room. Jeremy Chin, good. Quan Martin,
good.
No arguments there. Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, Tyler Owens, Derek Force, Jags.
All Jags.
Agree.
All Jags. All right, let's get to the other room that's of some concern is the cornerback room. Sanistril, St. Juice, Forbes, Davis, and Igbin Ogbeni.
Oh.
I don't know if you got that right. Did you?
I did. I looked it up, Stoner.
Very nice, Nathan. Stanistril is good. I'm not ready to say stud yet because He's only gone up against our offense and 2 other offenses, or 3, really.
Yep.
St. Juice, Emmanuel Forbes, Michael Davis, and Noah.
What you just
Not
said.
even going to
Jaggeroni.
attempt it. Not even going to attempt it.
Nah,
Just call him Noah.
Jaggeronis.
Well, yeah, that's his new name, Noah Jaggeroni.
I just call him Iggy. Why not call him Iggy?
Sure.
Mike Sanistril is one of those guys that when we reevaluate this, he is probably going to be a stud. This guy, and by the way, got number 0. Marcus Mariota switched to 18. Mike Sanistril back in his college number of 0 looks fantastic. I really want to put him as a stud, gents. I really do. This is the guy who's already taken. He's the best player in this room. Not saying much because those are a bunch of Jags. He is locked down the slot position, and he is starting to get snaps on the outside because he is just playing fantastic.
He's another guy. I think there's a couple of guys here that are going to get bumped up to stud. Like on offense, I don't necessarily see anybody over there that's going to get bumped up to stud as the season goes on. But there's a couple of guys on defense that totally could, and that's Sandra Strill and Quan Martin.
Sure.
And, of course, like I just said, Frankie Louvu.
Yeah, Gus Bus asking, why did Mario switch? Probably money.
Yeah, maybe, but he asked, Sanders still asked, and Mariota said, sure, not a problem.
JG saying, come on, Stoner, a 4-year-old can say the name. Let's all try it.
No,
starting with Stoner.
His name is Noah Jaggeroni.
No, say his last name.
Noah Igbino Jaggeroni. Can't do it. Can't do it.
Jaggeroni it is. Sorry.
Can't do it.
Stoner's got to give me one attempt.
Yeah. Noah Jaggeroni.
Yep.
Say it with me. Igbin Ogani.
Igbin Ogani.
That's it.
Jaggeroni is way better.
Yep.
Igbin Ogani.
Yep. Igbin.
Okay,
I
his
did
name
have it as Ben, not B-Nogany.
I'll learn his name if he makes an impact.
Igby Nogany.
Yep.
If he makes an impact on the squad, I'll learn his name.
He probably won't be, although he was a former high round draft pick. All right, let's take a look at the practice squad before moving on here.
I mean, they're all Jags.
Kashmir Allen. Yeah. This is a guy I did not practice his name. Chigozie Anuzium. Julian Jones. Sam Hartman for all the ladies is back. Andre Jones Jr. Hagai Ndebusi. Chris Rodriguez Jr., Mitchell Tinsley, Bryson Tremaine, Cole Turner, Carlos Watkins, and Michael Wiley. Wiley was one of the guys that a lot of people, people loved Wiley. Thought that he was going to be running back 3. Cole Turner shopped around, didn't find a home, wasn't picked off waivers because he would have had to go to a 53. And so he signs back with Washington as the 5th tight end.
Defensive tackle.
Chris Rodriguez?
Trev. Carlos Watkins is a defensive tackle. I'd never heard of him until just
Chris
now.
Rodriguez Jr.
I mean, you need a couple of running backs on that practice squad. Is that 17? Is that all 17? Are we done with 17, or are they still?
We are at the current list that I had was at 12 players.
Oh, so they still got more that they could be signing.
Yeah. Tommy pointing out, actually, I did not list either of the special teams guys, Cade York or Tressway. I'm wearing Tressway's jersey. As much as I would love to put him as a stud, I would put him at good.
No, I probably wouldn't. I'd put him at stud. He's top 6-7 punter in the NFL.
In my heart, he's always number 1.
Is he like this is where you can't use Gus's formula. You're not going to trade Tressway for a first-round draft pick, but you're not going to trade any punter for a first-round draft pick. But Tressway is a stud when you compare him to the other punters around the league. He's a top 6 or 7 punter. So, yeah, I'd put him as a stud, and the other 2 is probably Jags.
Yeah, as much as I was excited that we have perhaps a kicker that can last all the games and make all the kicks, Matt Rao, Cade York, we traded a conditional 7th for him. Not going to there. We have long snapper as well, Ott, who I did not list on here, which is weird because I took it right off of the Washington page. And so I must have missed that. But Tyler Ott, just okay, just a jag. Yeah, this is a problem, right? This is as much as this is the argument everybody's having over Terry McLaurin and Jonathan Allen. How many Pro Bowls did Tress have is what Mike is asking. And this is the one time where I will give you that Tress Way is going to be a lock for the Washington Commanders Ring of Honor. And he's going to be forgotten 5 years after he retires. As much as I love him and I think that he's an underrated punter, I don't think he's going to go down as one of those punters that people, remember, not outside of the Burgundy Gold, outside of DC. People aren't going to remember him, which, to be fair, I probably couldn't name maybe more than 2 punters.
And by the way, to answer that question, he has 2 Pro Bowls and he was second team All-Pro 1 year. So let's not,
dismiss him so quickly.
You were trying
to. I'm waiting here. Tommy T updating Eagles signed a Jack Saint.
Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah, was never excited about him. I know a lot of other people were, but that's the 53 as it stands now. Lots of movement still happening. We'll see how it goes. I just wanted to break it down, and we're going to talk about those studs and goods and all that kind of stuff later. I just wanted to see kind of where we were thinking on those roster, because this is just the beginning. We'll rate them later in the year, save this, and see how we feel about it and how everything goes. But right now, I know Adam Peters might feel just okay about this roster, but I know he knows there's still things that are coming up. We're going to talk about that here in the cool down on what's next. Stick with us. Welcome to the cool down here for the 188th episode of Ref the District. We just finished up the game, and as that graphic reminds me, it was presented by Don't Sleep Energy. You can head over to Don't Sleep Energy and use the code DISTRICT to get yourself 10% off your entire order. Support a local company, let them know that we sent you there, and get good products, when that it be some of their fantastic gear or their energy drinks. They've got you covered at don'tsleepenergy.com. Just use the code DISTRICT to get yourself 10% off your entire order. Don't Sleep Energy makes you great. It's time to do your fancy editing and make sure I put that in the game rather than the cool down here. As I forgot that one, I need a little ding. I need somebody to remind me that. Let's talk about what is next as we are moving on here for the cool down. And I have Noah Brown up here. And we've already talked Noah Brown, but he's kind of signifies that even though they submitted their 53, we've already seen changes. Ridgeway was on the 53. He was traded. Noah Brown gets signed, and we're going to see some more movement. Where would you guys like to see the movement most? We'll start with you, Trev, with you and the Crickets.
I need some cornerback movement. I need some defensive end movement. And I need more wide receiver movement. This Noah Brown signing does nothing for us. No offense to Noah Brown, but it does nothing for us, personally, in my opinion. Other than that, I think those are the 3 biggest positions that need more work, need some more help, need to address them a little bit better. Plain and simple. Because
I think it's fair,
like you said.
I think it's fair. I like cornerback is a very, very important. They've only got 5 corners,
and they're
that
all
to me, other than Sanders, right?
Yeah.
So I think they have to find somebody along the way who gets released here in the next couple of weeks and bring them along, because you just don't want those guys, some of those guys out there playing. You don't want Jagaroni out there playing. And he's out there when one of those guys gets hurt, because you got your 3 starters, right? Basically, you've got Davis, Forbes, and Sanders still. And if any of those guys go down, you've got Forbes and you've got Jagaroni. I think that's a little scary. So they're going to need to find somebody out on this waiver wire who's going to be able to help this team, hopefully. But you've mentioned it, Nathan, before, that if you're on the waiver wire, there's a reason.
Mhm.
So you can't expect to find somebody who's going to come in and change this defense at this point. But we'll see what happens. I think I'm a little concerned about that. Obviously, offensive line too. But with the offensive line, that's even more so than corners. Those guys are hard to find just out on the street looking for a job.
At this point, you're not going to find. So I bring up the Charles Leno situation a lot. Charles Leno was an early cut. It was more of a money thing for Chicago. He was an average tackle, and they weren't going to pay him tackle money, right? Because you rarely get that if you're trying to re-sign with your team. So they cut him, and post June 1 cut, Washington picked him up. That's those post 1 cuts. Those are vets who are good, maybe slightly above average, but just didn't fit with the team, was a money thing, something like that. They're not great. Most people would list them as Jags, and they're probably right to do that. That's fair. Charles Leno is a serviceable starter that you get out on June 1 cut. You can get serviceable starters out of post June 1. We're past that though. We're talking about players who were, the 6th, 7th guy on their team and got cut now. If you're an offensive lineman like Stoner was bringing up here and we're talking about, you're the 12th best offensive lineman that person had, that team had, and you're now gone. And if you get picked up, you're not going to all of a sudden be the top 3 guy at the new team. You're going to be still the 10th, 12th best offensive lineman that is getting it out there.
That's a problem.
Buck Terry is a different thing. Those guys are out there for different reasons. And this lockdown law saying can't stay healthy. But that's different. I'm talking about guys who are cut right now. Washington cut Trent Scott, as Stoners was using this example earlier. If they cut Trent Scott, would you be surprised?
No.
Do you think Trent Scott's going to get picked up?
No.
Yes.
He actually does.
He would
get picked up by a team. Maybe not right away, but he will get picked up because somebody's going to need a swing tackle.
Breaking news. There's been a massive quarterback trade.
Taylor Heineke.
I've seen it. Taylor Heineke traded.
Good.
I think we owe $1 now for talking about this.
Good riddance. But yeah, so I don't know, man. It's going to be hard. I think somebody said what wide receivers are out there. I don't know the free agent wide receivers that are still out there right now, but so far.
CC Skins was asking, are there any wide receivers out there without a trade? None that are worth it. None that are going to get you super excited.
However, when you look at our wide receiver room, when you look at wide receiver 2, 3, and 4, that's a little bit different. If you're looking at the wide receiver room, right? If you're talking about looking at the tight end room, there's probably nobody out there who's going to move the needle for those tight ends. But for wide receivers, again, we have Terry McLaurin and a bunch of Jags down there, right? So you can bring in a decent wide receiver, i.e. Noah Brown, possibly, and he could be right there in that number 2 or number 3.
St. Brown was just released. That's an option there for a wide receiver that may kind of try to crack that record. The roster, I think we're very down on our wide receivers. Properly so. Properly so. That being said, I do believe this is an area where Adam Peters is not going to rush to improve. We're not going to, as Abdella asks, is it possible we trade for Ayuk or Jamar Chase? They're both holding out still. This is not the way Adam Peters wants to build this roster.
It's
And
not.
wide receivers are volatile. They can be game changers. They can be very good, but they can also just be running cardio, as we saw last year with our wide receivers. And I don't think that Adam Peters is looking to take away future assets for a player he could probably replace in another way. Not that Jamar Chase isn't outstanding. Ayuk, I think people are probably too high on Brandon Ayuk.
That's just because he wants to play with Jayden Daniels. That's why.
Yeah, I think people just got excited about that connection. But Jamar Chase is legit a top 10 wide receiver, and that would be awesome to get. But that's not the way Adam Peters is looking to do it. He's really, really looking to, build this thing properly and sustainable. And if you're trading away probably a couple firsts for a guy like Jamar Chase, or giving up one of the assets that you just try to keep, I don't think that's the way that they want to go. Oh, wow, crickets from both of you.
Yeah, I'm just reading this Terry McLaurin stat that his best career single high game in receiving yards was in week 15 last year, where he had 6 catches for 141 yards and 1 touchdown, which means he finished the season with 4 touchdowns, 1,002 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to mute you and your cricket.
That's a stud, man. That's a stud.
I'm about to mute you and your.
Hey, by the way, last year Noah Brown had averaged 17.2 yards per catch. You'll take that.
Yeah,
you'll take that.
That's where I want De'Ami Brown to be this year. I talked about this before. De'Ami Brown needs to find his niche as a deep threat. He really does. He just needs to be that guy. He can run 9s all day, and just that 1 or 2 times a game that Jayden Daniels will uncork it his way because the defense was sleeping, because they just see De'Ami Brown running that 9 route, that straight go every single time. The safety and the cornerback are going to be paying attention somewhere else because they're like, yep, that's Brown just doing his thing. And he gets uncorked. Give me 1 40-yarder every other game for De'Ami Brown, and I'd be happy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would
I think we're going to see that. I think we'll see that this year, to be honest.
This administration loves De'Ami Brown. There's no doubt.
Oh,
and while in the past he's had some preseasons where we thought he was going to be a good player, right? This preseason was a little bit different. He was really popping in the preseason games and all the practices. So this could be a breakout year for him. Although, I mean, a breakout year for him would be 30 catches, right?
Yeah,
because he's had 29 catches in 3 years. So 1 year of 30 catches would be a breakout. But I think it's going to be a little bit different. Let's not get carried away and think it's going to be Terry McLaurin light or anything. But he's going to have a pretty good year this year, I think, for Washington. I think it's going to be a little bit different for De'Ami Brown. I've never been a De'Ami Brown guy, but this coaching staff loves De'Ami Brown.
Any other moves you guys want to make for this 53? What's happening next? Because we know there's going to be something that's coming. I already talked about 2 players that potentially will hit the practice squad. Tyler Owens might keep on the 53, but is there really any way that Yankoff, they keep a 4th tight end?
No.
Oh, I think there's that possibility. No. I think there's that possibility. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe because of Ben Simmons' versatility at the tight end spot. He can be lined up anywhere.
They run a lot of 12 personnel. Cliff loves the 12 personnel. That's 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So you can expect a lot of, Zach and Bates out there.
This is where the word initial is important because, yes, he made the initial 53, but like Nathan's saying, I think he will find himself quite inactive or practice squad this season.
All right. Where do you guys feel? What is your guys' opinion on the 53 right now? Let's wrap this up. We're all getting tired.
It is what it is. I mean, after looking at everybody we released, it is what it is. Like, we didn't release any studs or any good players. I mean, KJ Henry could be arguable for some, not for me personally, but yeah, like after what we got rid of, yeah, it is what it is.
I'm a little down on the roster overall. Not saying that this is necessarily going to be a bad year, but I'm down in terms of what I felt they could have done in the offseason and what maybe I just have a few disagreements in some of the things that they did. And so I look at it and I worry about some of these situations. I worry if a linebacker goes down and I've got my Cal Walker in there playing at linebacker. Yeah. My depth is a concern. I don't have a lot of concern with a lot of starters. I don't have a lot of problem with the starters.
The 11 on offense, 11 on defense are fine, right?
Yeah,
for the most part.
League, so
I said fine. Fine's not great. Yeah. I said they're fine.
Right. But I am very concerned about depth in a lot of places, almost all the places, at defensive end, at linebacker, at corner, even safety. I'm concerned if Tyler Owens is playing a lot at safety. Sorry, I know he popped in the preseason.
Yeah, he's District Diamond. He's this year's District Diamond by a land.
I'm worried if he's out there playing in a regular season game. If one
Jeremy
of those
Reeves,
two guys go down, right? Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, same thing. I'm worried if Andrew Wiley goes down because Andrew Wiley is not very good. So the guy behind him must be really
Trent
bad.
Scott,
right?
Cornelius Lucas.
I'm worried if Jeremy McNichols is playing in a game.
Right.
Because one of those other
worried about that one, but yeah.
I mean, Jeremy McNichols he's a Jag. So any of those guys who are Jags, I'm worried if they're playing in a game.
Which is everybody behind the starters.
But overall, I think the administration, the coaching staff and all of that, I think they did a good job of turning over the roster and getting a lot of their own guys in there. But I still think overall it's a weak roster, but it all comes down to what? It all comes down to one thing. It all comes down to Jayden Daniels and how well he plays and if he can mask some of those inefficient areas, if he can mask Andrew Wiley's poor play, if he can mask Zach Ertz getting hurt, if he can sustain drives longer so the defense doesn't have to be out there as long. It all comes down to one dude and Jayden Daniels. And if he can be what we think he can be, then we're looking at probably 8-9 wins. And that's a huge improvement from 4 of last year.
Yeah. If. Yep. Locked on lock. There's no doubt. There's a lot of hopes and stuff. And I know you started off this chat with a lot of negativity and not too happy about things. But Joshua here, let AP cook. And I think that's something that he's doing, with this roster. It's a lot. Trev brought out the list at the beginning. The 2023 Week 18 roster is not the Week 1 roster we're seeing here in 2024. It is unheard of, the amount of changeover. And as Locked On Law, you had mentioned, they did more than I thought they would in one offseason. Brian here, I actually think they did as good as they could for a lot of places that people think are suspect. We're talking about a very, very bad roster. Okay. Yeah. We're talking about a 4-win team last year. We're talking about a team in the last 4 years that didn't have a winning record. This is a bad team. We're talking about, as Stoner mentioned, how many players out of the Ron Rivera draft era are still playing?
12 out of the 33.
A dozen out of 33 players drafted over 4 years. That is not a recipe for success. That's how bad this team is. So it's not going to change over in this year. We do, as we listed out, have a lot of Jags right now. Just another guy. But I do think that the roster is moving the right direction. It all does hinge, Stoner, on the QB play. If Jayden Daniels flames out, then this roster is in a lot of hurt. Okay. But the coaching staff right now, I have a lot of faith in them to mask some of this. Rosters are full of Jags, not just here in Washington. You look at
Right.
any of the rosters. Kansas City won a Super Bowl last year. I guarantee you half the roster is Jags.
Yeah,
Just the
absolutely.
way it works.
Yep,
sure.
absolutely.
Just the way it works.
And I think you're going to see a lot of running the ball.
Yep.
We're going to see a lot of running the ball. A lot. We're going to be like, this is the anti-EB game plan.
We're gonna have 20 runs in a row, 29 runs.
Yeah,
What was it? How many times did he do that? As JG says, we're 17-0 until proven otherwise. And we will be back next week live. We have real football, not this weekend, although college football does come back. There's already kind of started there, but my Sooners will be playing Friday against Temple. But we have NFL football back next week. That means we will be bringing you even more content. You just need to make sure that you subscribe to the channel here. We're live every Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern on Facebook and YouTube. You can join the conversation, or you can listen to it after we load it up on your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you're listening, make sure that you leave us a rating and review. That helps other people find us. And make sure you share this content with other people so that way more people can join the conversation. Stoner and I and Trev are looking at ways that we can maybe create more content for you and more opportunities with a membership package for you to actually join us live instead of having some recorded content. So we're looking at those kind of things. I will continue our Monday mailbag session. So look forward to that. And I provide some shorts on those contents. We're doing our best to bring you some stuff. We love the support that we get from you all. I'm Nathan. That's Stoner. That's Trev. We're on the Believe Network here on Ref the District, brought to you by Bet Online and Don't Sleep Energy. And until next time.
Terry McLaurin is a jet. He's a stud. Stop the slander.
No, he said it.